going to go into the code. Okay, now this is kind of wacky. I know a lot of you are like, what? Into the code? Yeah. So we're going to write it in the code here and let go. And it's going to say, oh, you want to make a connection between your UI and your controller. No problem. What kind of connection you want to make? And we want to make what's called an outlet connection. An outlet means an instance variable or property that points to this thing in the UI. And all it needs to know to do that is, what do you want to call this property? And this is the display of my calculator, so I'm going to call this display. And it already knows the type of the thing is UI label, of course, because we drag from here. Don't worry about this week. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then we just hit connect, and it creates an instance variable or property right here in our controller. So this is a great opportunity to look at the syntax in Swift for creating a property. And there's a couple of things on here that are not normally part of it. This is the main syntax for creating a property. Let's quickly look at this thing to get it out of the way. This is not really part of the Swift language proper. This is something Xcode puts in here so that this little circle, do you see the little circle in this gutter appears? This little circle, when I mouse over it, look what Xcode does. It shows me what this line of code is connected to. Okay? So that's really cool, and you're going to see that's really valuable later in this demo, is being able to find out what things are connected to. So that's all this thing means here. You don't type this in yourself, that when you control drag, it puts it there. This week, if you come from other languages, you're used to things like garbage collection to clean up the heap, or maybe you even have to alloc and free things yourself manually in some languages. None of that in Swift. In Swift, all objects live in the heap. Okay, all classes, instances of classes live in the heap, and the memory for them is managed for you. Okay, you allocate them as much as you want. As soon as there's no pointers to them, they get cleaned up, and it's not garbage collection. Okay, it's reference counting. It's actually counting references to them, but it's all automatic. The only thing you ever have to be maybe interested in is this week business, which is less than 1/100% of the time. And for the first 4 weeks of this class, forget about week. It'll automatically happen when you do this control drag, but just ignore it. But the main thing to know is that all that memory management is happening for you. Also, this instance variable right here, which is a pointer to this object, notice there's no ampersands or stars or any other kind of syntax that says this is a pointer. Okay? If you have a instance variable or property or local variable that is an object, okay, it's always a pointer to it, because objects only live in the heap. Okay, so you don't need all that extra stars and ampersand, any of that business from other languages, okay? This exclamation point, by the way, I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, has nothing to do with this being an object, okay? This is a totally separate thing. We'll get to it. All right, so let's look at this. This is the syntax for defining a property, okay, an instance variable. And it's very simple. You got var, short for variable, so that's what this is, a variable. The name, this is the name of it, display, okay, that's just the name of this property. And then :UI label exclamation point is the type, okay? That's the type of this instance variable. So again, I'll talk about the exclamation point later, but obviously this thing is pointing to this label so that we can talk to it. And we'll be doing that in a moment. Okay, questions? All right. Let's talk about another kind of connection we can make. Let's start putting some buttons in our calculator. So I'm going to go back to the utilities window, okay, by pressing this button over here. Go down to the bottom, go to the third tab over here, the object library. And instead of a label, this time I'm going to drag out a button. Okay, I'm going to put this button here. Now, just to be different, I'm not going to initially line it up with a blue line. I'm just going to put it kind of in space out here, and I'll line it up with a blue line later. Okay? But I don't want to forget to do that, though. I always want to do that. I'm going to do it later just to show you it can be done. So this is going to be, let's say this is going to be one of our number buttons, like the upper left corner of our keypad is a 7. Okay? Again, I have the same thing over here, okay, with the attributes inspector. I can change things like the font. Let's make this be 24 point, let's say. I can resize. Notice that when I resize, it'll actually tell me the size. See it saying there what size it is? I can also set the size maybe with this size inspector right here. Type it in exactly, maybe 64 by 64 or something like that. We don't usually do that. We want things to be kind of their natural sizes, but just wanted to show you that there are other inspectors over here. So we have this 7. Now when this 7 is pressed, what do we want to happen? Well, we want numbers to start appearing up here in the display, right? So that's something our controller is going to have to do. So when we touch this button, we kind of want this button to send a message to our controller. And we do that the exact same way as we did this one. We hold down Control, drag into our code. When we let go, though, we're not going to do an outlet connection this time because I don't want an instance variable here. What I want is a method, right? A function on my class, a method. Everyone understand the word method, I hope. Okay, so we wanted to send an object-oriented message to our controller. Okay, that's great. So I'm going to pick action. Losing my voice here. Bad time to have a little cold, but. So I'm doing an action. So an action is a little different than an outlet. Okay, an outlet means an instance variable or property. Action means create a method for me. So again, it wants to know the name of the method. So what does this thing do? Well, when I press 7, it appends a digit onto the end of whatever's already in the display. So I'm going to call it append. I could call it append 7, but I'm actually going to call it append digit because I want to have one method that all of my buttons use, right? I don't want to be copying and pasting a whole bunch of methods. That would be really bad code. But if I'm going to have one method, then I need to know which button is sending me this message. Okay? Luckily, when you have an action, a message being sent here, you can specify that it has arguments. You see right here where it says arguments? And it could have no arguments, or it can have the sender, which is the button here, as the argument. The only tricky thing here is, and I'm not sure why they did this in Xcode, hopefully they'll change it in the future. By default, the type of that argument, which is right here, is any object. Now we're going to talk about any object next week, but we don't want any object here. We know that the sender is a UI button. So I click this little blue thing and switch this to UI button. When you're doing your homework, if you forget to switch that to UI button, you'll be sad. Okay? So don't forget. And obviously the event that the message is going to be sent on, touch up inside, just means the user touched on this button and the touch went up while it was still inside the button. That's all touch up inside means there. All right, so when I connect this, I'm going to get a method with one argument, which is a sender, which is a UI button. So let's take a look. So here's your first method declaration in Swift. Okay, again, it's got this little IB action thing, which is kind of like IB outlet. It puts a little dot in the gutter, okay, so that you can see what this thing is connected to. So this is the normal Swift method syntax. Starts with func, because function, basically a method is a function in class. Here's the name, append digit. And then in parentheses, all the arguments separated by commas. We only have one argument, though. Here's the name of the first argument. That's the name we're going to use to access it inside of our method. And here is the type. Okay, it's a UI button. I've noticed no exclamation point there, by the way. Okay, if this had a return value, if this method returned something, this one doesn't, but if it returned something, it would look like this. Arrow, the return type. Okay, so that's how you specify a return type. Okay, pretty simple syntax. And then inside here, we just type whatever we want this thing to do when one of these buttons is touched. So what do we want it to do? Well, okay, first of all, before we do that, let's go ahead and make more of these buttons because I need 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, all this. So let's copy and paste the button. When I copy and paste the button, notice I'm using the blue lines to put it perfectly lined up. Okay. Also notice that they're both sending this message, right? See how they're both sending the message? Because when I copied and pasted, it copied that aspect of it as well. So there's another one. I could select all 3 of these and copy and paste. Okay. I could select all 6 of these and copy and paste. So I can quickly make my entire keypad. I just need to edit the title. Now, if while I'm editing these titles, sometimes you're clicking around in here and you know, you're not a very accurate clicker, or you know, you just get out of control clicking here and oh, you moved it out of the way. Okay, no problem. You can just put it right back in. Okay, use the blue lines to your advantage. And we'll put our 0 down here. And I don't need this button, so I'm just selecting it and hitting delete. That's how you can get rid of something. And I promised I was going to put these all on blue lines, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to put it right underneath the 0.